There was a time when a man's word meant something. When you said you'd do something, you did it. When you made a promise, you kept it. Not because it was easy, but because your name was attached to it. A handshake used to build trust. A vow used to build families. And a man's consistency used to build entire communities. But somewhere along the line, we drifted from that. We built a world that celebrates convenience more than commitment. We made everything temporary. Our jobs, our habits, our marriages, even our beliefs. And now we live in a culture that breaks promises with no sense of loss. We ghost people instead of growing through conflict. We apologize without changing. We post our intentions instead of proving them. But men weren't built for half-hearted vows. We were built to carry weight. Because every promise we make to our wives, our kids, our brothers, our faith is a piece of the foundation the world stands on. You can feel when a promise still matters. It hits different in your chest because somewhere deep down you know your word is supposed to be heavier than your excuses. And maybe that's what this moment is about. Remembering that promises weren't meant to be convenient. They were meant to be kept. Integrity used to be simple. It wasn't about being flawless. It was about being faithful. If you said yes, it meant yes. If you said no, it meant no. But in this modern age of options, we've built escape hatches into everything. We leave ourselves a way out of our commitments just in case something easier comes along. We keep our promises only until they're inconvenient. We tell the truth only until it costs us comfort. Somewhere along the line, our maybe started sounding like manhood. We stopped finishing what we started and started calling it flexibility. But integrity doesn't bend. It either is or it isn't. We live in a world that celebrates impulse and excuses consistency. We break our word and the world shrugs because everyone does it. But that's the lie that's hollowed out entire generations. Because every broken promise weakens something unseen. A son watches his father promise he'll show up and doesn't. A wife watches her husband say he'll change and doesn't. A man promises himself he'll stop drifting and doesn't. Each time, something inside us erodes. Not instantly, quietly. Until one day, we realize our words have no weight left. They sound strong, but don't stand strong. That's the erosion I'm talking about. The slow decay of integrity that happens when comfort becomes our God. And that's why we need an oath again. Something that doesn't shift when life gets hard. Something that reminds us who we said we would be. An oath isn't about perfection. It's about direction. It's the line you draw in your soul that says, no matter what happens, I'm staying true. You see, promises are made with words, but oaths are made with will. They aren't just spoken, they're carried. And somewhere deep down, every man feels that pull, the need for something sacred again. Not a contract, not a checklist, but a commitment that means something beyond circumstance. That's what the oath is. It's not about control. It's not about image. It's a vow to live by the standards that define men who still believe their word matters. When you make an oath to your family, you're not saying, I'll be perfect. You're saying, I'll keep showing up, even when it's hard. When you make an oath to your brothers, you're saying, I'll hold the line, and if I fall, I'll rise again. When you make an oath to yourself, you're saying, I refuse to drift. That's the kind of vow that changes everything, because when a man anchors his life to his word, storms stop defining him. And I know it's not glamorous. There's no applause for it, no viral moment for staying consistent, but every generation that lasts was built on men who kept their word when nobody was watching. That's the quiet power of an oath. It steadies you when emotion fades, and it speaks for you long after words run out. No man keeps an oath alone. You can make promises in private, but they're proven in the company you keep, because drift always starts in isolation. When a man has no one to remind him who he said he'd be, he eventually forgets. That's why we need brotherhood, not a buzzword, but as a lifeline. It's the circle that calls you out and calls you up. The men who know your story, your strengths, your blind spots, and still stand beside you. Accountability isn't judgment. It's agreement. It's saying, I see who you are, and I'll remind you when you forget. The world has confused brotherhood with bonding. Bonding is easy. It's laughs, surface level stories, shared hobbies. Brotherhood costs something. It costs honesty. It costs humility. It costs the willingness to say, you're drifting, brother, come back. And that's what the Forge is meant to be. Not another chat group or pep rally, but a place where men sharpen men through truth, not talk. Because a man without accountability is one bad day away from collapse. But a man surrounded by brothers who hold the standard can weather anything. And you don't need dozens of men. You need one or two who refuse to let you disappear. That's how oaths are kept, in the presence of men who refuse to let you break them. So here's where it gets real. Every man listening to this right now knows an area where he's drifted, a promise that's gotten quiet, a standard that's softened, a word that's lost its weight. And this isn't about guilt. It's about getting it back. Because when a man recommits, even quietly, even alone, something in him wakes up again. You feel it in the moment you decide no more halfway, no more excuses, my word matters again. That's what an oath does. It realigns you with who you were always meant to be. So tonight, before you scroll, before you sleep, make a small promise you intend to keep. Apologize where you need to, follow through on something you've delayed. Tell your wife, your kid, your brother, I'm in this for real. Then prove it tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. That's how men rebuild trust, one kept promise at a time. Your family doesn't need a perfect plan. They need your presence, your consistency, your word that means what it says. That's the oath. That's the standard. And when enough men start living it, the world stops collapsing and starts recalibrating. This is the work. This is the movement. This is Fatherhood Reclaimed. Stand your ground, stay in the fight, and I'll see you in the Forge.